From Oshkosh Community Media Services, this is Oshkosh City Cable 10 and broadcast on 101.9 FM WOCT Oshkosh. Welcome to Your City at Work, your program about local government departments and services. Your City at Work is a production of the City of Oshkosh and Oshkosh Community Media Services.
Thank you for joining us on Your City at Work, a program that really focuses on the new and exciting things going on here in Oshkosh, a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at a few of the services that really make our city tick. I'm your host, Emily Mikowski, and we have a really awesome program lined up for today on a service that a lot of people sometimes do take for granted, and that's recycling. We've got the Winnebago County Solid Waste here to talk about how the recycling process works, what happens to those items after you put them out in your bin, as well as some new guidelines and items that are now accepted, another important aspect of our program. So joining us today, we have Jennifer Semrau, Recycling Specialist for the Winnebago County Solid Waste. And Jennifer, first of all, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for bringing all your fun items here. We're so excited to go through all of them. And but before we do that, I think we want to kind of get a little bit of background on the recycling program here in Winnebago County. How does it all work, and really what's the history of it?
Sure. Recycling really began in the state of Wisconsin back in 1989. That's when the state passed the statewide recycling law that governs everything that we do in the recycling program. In Oshkosh, it began in about 1992-93, and after the law was passed, all communities across the state needed to start recycling programs, and the law was going to go into effect in 1995. And so in the years leading up to that, that's when cities like Oshkosh began investigating and working towards having curbside recycling programs.
Yes, and it's really gone a long way since then, too, from the very beginning.
Right.
It's actually kind of surprising that it didn't start until 1989, 1992.
That's true. I mean, there were some programs around the United States and in progressive areas of Wisconsin that started recycling as early as the 70s, but as far as a statewide program, it was all with the 1989 law and going into effect in 1995.
Very cool. So take us through the process here. We have our recycling, items. We put them in our blue bin. We put them out on the curb, and after that, they kind of disappear from our lives there. So
Sure.
Let's talk about the process after the trucks come and pick up our bin.
Okay, great. The way it works in Winnebago County is all of the communities throughout the county decide how to do collections. So it's not the same. Here in Oshkosh, there are blue carts that you put your recyclables into, but that's not the case throughout the county. What happens then is those trucks come to where I work, which is at the Winnebago County Transfer Station on the north side of Oshkosh, right across the street from the county landfill, which is a landmark in the county. At the transfer station, all of these smaller trucks unload their recyclable materials. We then load them into larger trucks and bring them to Outagamie County. Winnebago actually works cooperatively with Brown, Outagamie, and Winnebago County. The three counties work together. And we have a jointly owned and operated recycling processing facility, and that's in Appleton. So we literally take the recyclables from Oshkosh, bring them to Appleton, and they're joined with all the recyclables from the three counties as well as other areas, and are processed into different commodities.
It's a lot of recyclables coming out of that truck there too. So
Right.
This is the facility that they all go to. You see this huge pile, and then from that point, it gets all sorted out. So what's that process?
Right. We use different techniques to separate the recyclables because, with us having single stream, everything is mixed together. The paper, the cardboard, the cans, and the bottles. We use different machines that can separate out the recyclables, as well as human labor sorters that help us with quality control. The main piece of equipment that we use that separates cans and bottles from paper is called a disc screen. There are different discs that are located on shafts on giant plates within the facility, and there's agitation that's applied, and the shafts are actually at an angle. And what happens is the cans and bottles will fall through the holes in the disc screens, and the paper, because it's flat and two-dimensional, will ride on top of the disc screens. So that
is so interesting.
Yeah, really, this is a great video that demonstrates that. With that agitation that's supplied, the cans and bottles will fall through the holes, and the paper will continue on top. And then again, we have sorters that help us with the quality control. Machines aren't perfect, so cans and bottles that are flat may end up with the paper. Three-dimensional paper, such as a book, may end up with the containers because it's all size sorted. So then we'll use our skilled sorting labor to separate out that which the machines didn't sort. And then we do also do some things by hand intentionally. Some of the plastics are separated by hand. We do use a magnet to separate out the steel materials.
Oh, really?
We use an eddy current to separate out the aluminum. And we do actually have an optical sorter that will identify some of the plastic materials. But even with all of that technology, we still need to have that human component, those sorters, to help us ensure that we have the proper things in their places. So.
Yes, it's amazing the process. I mean, that's a lot of things to sort through. And like you said, it's cool that you still have that human aspect, because there's only so much a machine can do.
Exactly, right,
and
right.
see.
Right.
So from that point, everything's sorted. What's the next step?
We run it through a machine called a baler. So we will take all of a like type of material, so say all plastic, water, and soda bottles would go together, and the baler will compress them into a cube and wrap wire around them, and that's how we're able to then ship them on semi-trucks to different markets. So all of the materials except for glass are baled and sent to different markets. With the paper, we use a lot of the Northeast Wisconsin paper mill industry receives our paper and cardboard, so that's really positive for the local economy. And then the vast majority of the other materials go into either Wisconsin or Midwest regional markets. So.
Very cool. And so it's great to see and hear where all these things are going and where they end up, and how, the positive ways that they're being used.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this year at the facility, we're looking at processing 100,000 tons of recyclables. So that will be a landmark, and we're excited.
Very great. So definitely a lot of work going on here. And we kind of touched on some of the things that come through, but maybe we can go a little bit more in depth as what the guidelines are, what has been currently accepted before our new items.
Sure, perfect. We're looking at metal. The common recyclable items would be aluminum cans, as well as steel and bimetal containers, so things like a coffee can or a soup can, cat food containers, those types of things can all be recycled. On glass, we do recycle all of the different colors of glass, so whether it's a brown bottle, green, or clear, any glass or bottle that contained a food type product or a beverage could be put in your recycling. On the paper side of things, items that could be recycled include newspaper, including all of the flyers and the inserts, things that come in the paper, that's all recyclable. Magazines and catalogs, glossy paper, that's just fine. Office paper, school paper, those types of things. Cardboard, so all the shipping boxes we're getting now can be broken down and put into your recycling container, as well as a material called fiberboard, and so that's going to be things like the 12-pack soda box, or the macaroni and cheese box, or those types of things. Those types of boxes. Yeah, both types of cardboard and the thinner type are both recyclable. Books can be recycled, whether they're a softcover book like a foam book, or a novel, or even hardcover books can be put in your recycling bin. Yes. Junk mail also is something that people don't always realize that they can recycle.
Thing that you can recycle.
Definitely. We get too much of it. But don't worry about the window envelopes, like the plastic on there. Doesn't matter. You can put that all right in your recycling container. And then a few other things that people don't necessarily realize that they can recycle that are fiber include the tubes from, say, toilet paper or paper towel.
Really?
Those can be recycled, as well as paper egg cartons. So put all of those types of paper materials in your recycling, and we'll process those. And then lastly, plastics are the main thing that we've had consumer confusion on in the past. So we're really hoping our new program helps to eliminate that. But previously, you could only recycle number 1 and number 2 plastics. And we had asked residents to look at the bottom of the container to try to identify if they were a 1 or 2. Main examples of those were like water bottles or soda bottles, as well as milk jugs, detergent bottles, and bleach containers. So those were the plastics that we were pretty much limited to previously. But here are a few examples of some things that could be recycled before that were number 1s and number 2s, but people don't necessarily realize. We tend to keep our recycling in the kitchen.
Yes.
And you really have containers outside of the kitchen that can be recycled. So here is a hairspray bottle.
And that's the pump bottle.
Yep, it's a pump bottle. Yep. But even if you were to have hairspray in a steel can,
Yes.
this could also be recycled previously and can still be recycled. You'll notice that the steel can, we did remove the plastic cap as well as the little nozzle that'll pop right off. And we do that just so it doesn't accidentally spray inside your recycling container, because there tends to be always a little bit in there. But these type of aerosol cans.
Spray cans too, or spray paint too.
Right, spray
outside.
paint, if you use like a cooking spray, those types of cans, all of those metal aerosol cans can be recycled. And then again, on the plastics, remembering to recycle outside of the kitchen. So here's a shampoo bottle, hairspray bottle. Exactly.
Toilet cleaner.
Toilet bowl cleaner. Yep. All of those were number 1, number 2 plastics and could be recycled previously and still can be recycled.
Yes,
So.
and so those aren't the new things.
They're
either.
not
They
even the
might
new
seem,
ones.
I mean, for some
Yeah.
people, they might seem like, oh, I didn't know I could recycle that.
Right,
But, yeah.
right.
And then we wanted to touch on the caps too. We noticed none of these items have caps on them. Why
Correct.
is that?
That's true. We do ask residents to remove the caps from all plastic containers, and that's because the cap itself is actually a different type of plastic. It's not made out of the same resin as the rest of the bottle typically. And so another reason too, we find that helps guarantee that our containers are empty. It's very common that somebody will, maybe drink half a bottle of water, put their cap on, and we're glad that they're throwing that in the recycling bin instead of the trash, but our machinery struggles to separate cans and bottles that are not empty. So we
Okay.
do want them to be empty. So removal of the cap helps ensure that that occurs as well.
So get as much of that conditioner out of your shampoo.
Exactly.
bottle as
Yeah,
you
we
can.
do. I mean, that's sort of in our general guidelines as well. To give your recyclables a quick rinse.
Yes.
Make sure they're empty and put them in the recycling.
Great. So a lot of things that were currently accepted before we added some new items.
Right.
And now we want to talk about some of the new items. But first of all, how often does something like this happen? Like, how likely is it that items are added to the regular guidelines?
It's a pretty rare occurrence. The last time that we added new material was back in 2002, and that's when we added mixed paper. So the junk mail and that type of thing was added to our recycling program. But otherwise, yeah, we're going on 12, 13 years since we've had an addition to the recycling program.
So it's a big deal.
It is, it is. And the reason that it takes so long is we want to be very conscientious when we add a new material. We don't want to add something and then find in a couple of years markets have changed and we have to try to re-educate. Pretty much once you start taking something, you will get it in your recycling
It's hard
forever.
to remove it.
Yeah, exactly. And so we needed to be very careful of that there would be a strong market for our new materials. And that we also, it's a big deal because of the capital investment that's necessary to add materials at our processing facility.
Right, and is it, so it's that aspect of it, but as well as equipment. So you need some new kind of equipment for these kinds of things
Correct, right, that's true. The new upgrades that we just did at our processing facility, they just went online here in the end of November, beginning of December. And yeah, it was about $1.8 million that we invested in this new processing equipment. So it's
A lot of construction we can see here.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
We were pouring the floor for our new baler that was also a part of this process. So yeah, it was a multi-month process. I believe we started construction in June or so, over the course of the summer and fall, concluded adding new bins for the new materials. These are some pneumatic conveyors for the additional plastics. And so, yeah.
It's a big project.
It certainly was, yeah.
Yes.
So we were.
And so these things kind of work in a similar way to the ones that we explained before as far as baling and things like that go.
Correct. Yep, just we needed more of them in order to collect new materials, because literally everything is separated and has to be kept, from another material. So if we're going to add something, we literally have to have infrastructure to put that into.
Yes.
So.
Okay, so let's get to the fun part now.
Okay.
We want to talk about the new items, and you brought all these awesome props and things so we can actually see what we're able to throw in our recycling bin now. So
Great.
what are we looking at here, Jennifer?
Sure, yeah. First, I wanted to talk about cartons. This is a new material that we can recycle in Winnebago County, as well as the rest of our tri-county service area, Brown and Outagamie County. So cartons, whether they're orange juice cartons or you can get soy milk in cartons, even in the outside of the refrigerated section. In the soup aisle, you can get broth in cartons, as well as wine in the liquor department. So there's
and the little
a
mini
number of
cartons we've got here too.
Oh yes, thank
Yes.
you. I forgot that we had this prop. This is
Yeah.
right, especially in the schools. In the schools now, that cartons can be recycled. And again, you'll notice, they're open. There's no caps. They're empty. Again, asking that they have a quick rinse, and then they can go in the recycling. So cartons are one of our new items that we can recycle.
Wonderful.
And then here we have an abundance of recyclable plastics that we can now recycle.
Not my cup though.
Right, that's true. That's
Not
true.
that one.
Here, this is an example of a clamshell container. This would have had like blueberries or raspberries, something like that in there, and these materials are now recyclable, and they're very similar to what you might find, at the bakery department.
Yes.
So these types of, if they had donuts or what have you, even salad, like at the salad
Right.
bar in the deli, these types of materials are now recyclable.
Wonderful.
We also have, staying in the deli department, these types of containers from you get potato salad or coleslaw. Both the containers as well as the lids can be recycled. And then one of the biggest items too was dairy containers. We have had more requests to recycle yogurt cups than any other material. If there's a
Really?
question that we get more often than any other, it's why can't I recycle my yogurt cups? And now we can. So that's fabulous. So the yogurt cups, as well as things like cottage cheese containers, ice cream tubs. Here we have a sample of Cool Whip. You have butter and margarine tubs that can be recycled. These are all the same types of plastics and are things that we can recycle now, lids included. Chinese takeout containers would also be a sample of these type of plastics. Even if you go to a fast food restaurant and get a soda,
cups.
plastic cups, right? Not the paper ones, but if they're a plastic cup. And even like a reusable lunch meat container.
Yes.
We see these more and more often now, both the container and the lid. All of these new items, these props,
awesome.
can be added to your recycling container.
And a lot of these things you can still reuse for a little while afterwards
Sure,
too, before
sure.
you recycle them. I mean, these lunch meat containers, I
Yep.
am the most I've got about 100 of these at my apartment,
Sure.
and they're so great. But I mean, once you're done using them, they're great to get rid of. Usually you would toss them, but it's so nice that you can get rid of them now. 'Cause
Yes,
there's
yep.
so many of them.
Right. It's
Yeah.
becoming more and more popular. So yeah, these are all examples of some of the new materials.
Just wonderful. And the same things apply, make sure they're clean and empty.
Right.
If you've got something like this, or, like the containers that have lids, do you want to make sure the lids are off of there before you throw them in your container?
Either way, actually, it would be
Okay.
just fine for the lid to be put on it because this
all the
is
same kind of
This is
plastic.
actually the same. Yep. So you could put your lid right back on, but we recognize carts only have so much space. So if you want to remove the lid so that you
stack
can
'em.
nest containers in and have more space in your cart, that's fine too.
Great to know. So, I mean, a lot of items here that are now accepted. You can find a full list of the items. You've got a pamphlet and things like that you've got
exactly.
on the website as well.
Yes, and hopefully every resident in the city of Oshkosh should have received one of our new recycling brochures. We provided thousands of copies to Oshkosh, and so we're getting the outreach out in as many ways as we can.
So what's going to change as a result of having these new items? It's obviously positive that people are able to recycle them, but what's the bigger picture here with these?
Sure. I mean, it's really about trying to get as much materials out of the landfill as we can. And so this was a great example of a product category where there's really a lot of different types of materials that we could add at one time. So we're happy about that. as you know, as more materials are recycled and not put into the landfill, that saves money for municipalities as well. There's a cost to put things into the landfill versus taking these items and selling them and marketing them and reusing them again in a different form. So we're excited about that. Our municipalities are excited too. They can add these things to their curbside collection programs, and so we are going to be monitoring that to see how that affects collection volumes in our municipalities. This did just begin, so we are looking at that data as we speak.
Yes. And that was going to be one of my next questions. So having all these new materials as a challenge, have you seen an influx of items that are being recycled now? Have you seen a bigger volume here?
Right, we have, and that's a good problem. It's a great problem. Yeah, so we've been seeing more of these materials, as well as the holidays tend to be a busier time of year for us anyway. So between holidays as well as the new materials, we are seeing increases in our recycling, and yeah, we're up to the challenge for processing it. So
yes, definitely getting those new machines working
exactly.
in use here. Is it difficult to, I know you mentioned in the beginning, is it difficult for people to catch on to these new items? Obviously you don't have these changes a lot, but is it hard to communicate that to the residents?
Sometimes it is, so we really have tried to make our messaging as simple as possible, because again, plastics have always been sort of an area of confusion, and considering so many of our new materials are plastics, we've tried to be as clear as we can. So that's why you may have noticed when I mentioned the new materials, I didn't give any reference to numbers on the back, on the bottom of plastic containers. We're telling residents don't sweat the numbers anymore.
It's not too often that people are looking at the bottom
exactly.
of the
We learned that, and so we're just trying to identify the main product categories: the dairy, the deli, the produce. Recycle those containers. Frankly, all bottles and containers are what we're encouraging residents to put in their recycling, because more often than not, they are a recyclable item that we can recover, and so that's what our goal is to maximize that.
Yes.
So.
And in addition, having the items available online and the communication of what is acceptable, there are some items that are unacceptable that you do happen to have come through every once in a while. So maybe we can talk about that. What exactly are the items that aren't accepted?
Sure. Our biggest non-recyclable item is plastic bags. They really cause an issue at our processing facility when residents recycle plastic bags. They are recyclable, just not in your curbside programs. Okay. So that's kind of a key point. We do want residents to recycle plastic bags. We just can't process them here at our facility. And the reason for that is they wrap around, this is a great picture. They wrap around those disc screens that I mentioned earlier that are the key to separating the paper from the cans and bottles. And both plastic bags as well as things like extension cords or hoses, these types of long items will wrap around these disc screens, and we sometimes have to shut down to either unclog it or cut them out, and it's a significant operation and maintenance issue for us.
But we are able to recycle them.
Yes.
And we have our wall of examples here too, as well as up on screen. Where can people get rid of plastic bags?
At almost every grocer or retail location, in between the doors or somewhere at the front of the store, you will see a kiosk for recycling plastic bags. And most people, again, only think that it's for shopping bags,
and
plastic
bags. And that's what
bags.
I always thought. But all of these are accepted. What are the options here?
We've got a bunch of different samples here, including bread bags, a few different samples here. If you go to Subway or a sandwich shop, their bags are recyclable. Even zip top bags can be added to those types of plastic. We have ice bags, as well as the wrap that would go around toilet paper, paper toweling. Even if you buy a water case, there will be wrap around it. Here we have some examples of like a produce bag that you put your fresh apples and that in, as well as your traditional retail bags, and then we have bubble wrap even.
Bubble wrap.
So all of these are examples of things that if they're clean and dry, so if you had, say meat, or something like that would contaminate it, that should definitely still go in the garbage. But if they're clean and dry, those can all be added to regular plastic bags and deposited at locations that accept plastic bags for recycling, which again tend to be grocery stores, mass retailers, things like that. All of these can be recycled.
Wonderful. And these are things that you don't often think about, and I think that's part of it, is just training your mind as you go through your everyday life to think about that as you're, before you throw something away, think, wait a minute, like even the toilet paper cover and the water bottle packaging. Those are things that, you crumple them up and you throw them in your garbage.
Sure.
But just getting that word out that those are recyclable, I think is just great. And, outside of the bags, there are some other things that are recyclable, not accepted in curbside pickup, like cords and wire type of things.
Right. Yep. I mentioned that we can't take them at our facility because they cause maintenance issues. But if you do have extension cords or holiday lights, those can be recycled. In the holiday time of year, there are a few locations that take them seasonally. So like in Oshkosh, Menards, and Horicon Bank are both places that accept holiday lights for recycling. But even outside of the holiday season, if you will have cords and lights that you want to recycle, scrap metal dealers in the area will collect those and recycle those for you. So.
Yes. And so during the holiday season, more people are obviously accepting it because influx of the holiday lights.
When people are stringing their lights and realize last year's set don't work, there tends to be a lot more that are generated. So.
Yes. Otherwise, like you said, the scrap metal retailers are great places to go for that. And going back to how a lot of people don't recycle a lot of these things, a lot of people don't recycle at all. So this is one of your core messages here.
Sure.
Why should people be recycling? Why should people be thinking about this?
Yeah. There's the obvious reason, but I still want to emphasize it, is that it saves landfill space. That's really why the recycling program began in the state, was from an environmental ethic type of thing, that we want to conserve landfill space and not have to build new landfills as often as we otherwise would need to if we were putting all of these materials into the landfill.
So it really saves money.
It does. I was just going to say, there's also the economic benefit, because when Oshkosh or any other municipality deposits materials into the landfill, they have to pay a tipping fee, and that's an expense. The more materials that you can divert from the landfill, the more money that's saved. And again, these materials have value. We sell these materials and we share that revenue with the municipalities, including Oshkosh. So it's a win-win. They save on not having to pay to put it in the landfill, and they benefit from receiving some of the revenue back from the sale of the materials. So besides the economic benefits, obviously using recycled content in new materials, that's a win. Instead of using a virgin material, virgin plastic, or virgin metal, using recycled content helps in the manufacturing industry. And there's great demand for these materials. So that's something we're trying to meet.
Yeah, it's not going to waste by any means.
No, not at all. And so that's even, sort of a rumor, that the stuff doesn't really get recycled. And we encourage folks to come to our facility in Appleton. We do tours with groups and school groups. Cub Scouts, UW Oshkosh brings classes up there frequently. And so, we want people to see what we're doing up there and have a perspective on how recycling works.
Yes, it's definitely not all going to the same pile and the same
Exactly. Nope, not at all.
hole in the ground. And it's good for the earth too. You got to completely, you're doing your earth a benefit when you do recycle.
Definitely. It saves energy. Yeah, there's just an abundance of reasons.
Right.
So.
No reason not to. And it's, again, like you said, important to kind of train yourself a little bit as you're going through everyday life, making sure that you're thinking about, maybe I can recycle this. Maybe I should check it out.
Right.
Having that pamphlet on your fridge or something like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And even thinking about it when you're away from home. A lot of us tend to do really well recycling in our home, but when we travel or, are out and about, we're sometimes more likely to throw our water bottle in the trash can.
Whatever's closest to us.
Exactly, yeah. So seeking out recycling options, or even, bringing it home with you to put in your home recycling container.
Yes,
so.
Great. Well, want to do a little quick recap of the new items here that we can accept as far as plastics go?
Okay, sounds great. So the new plastics, again, would be dairy containers, so your yogurt, your sour cream, your margarine, your ice cream tubs can all be recycled. Deli containers, so potato salad, coleslaw, salads can all be recycled. Produce containers, bakery, clamshells, so if you have donuts or raspberries, those containers. And then again, the cartons, not a plastic, but the new cartons that can be recycled, orange juice, soup and broth, etc. All can be added now.
Wonderful. Well, we're so excited about these new changes. Where can people go to find more information if they do want to learn more?
Sure. Our website is www.winnebagocountysolidwaste.com. We have an abundance of resources there, as well as we have a Facebook page, so we invite you to follow us on Facebook, and we provide updates.
And really cool pictures on your Facebook page,
thank
too.
You. Great. Yes, excellent. And if people prefer to call us, our phone number is 920-232-1850.
So lots of information online. You can go to the plant itself or just call. There's no excuse not to get that information and to start recycling these awesome things. So,
That's great.
Jennifer, thank you so much for coming in and educating us. I think that we all learned a lot today as far as what we can recycle and the additional things that we can recycle. So thanks
Great.
again for coming in.
Thank you.
It looks like that's going to do it for this episode of Your City at Work. Make sure to tune into City Cable 10 for all your government programming, and check us out at oshkoshcommunitymedia.org for replays of your favorite shows, or go to our YouTube channel and share them with your friends. Of course, you can also hear Your City at Work and other programs on the radio at 101.9 WOCT. Don't forget to like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter for both city and programming updates. And finally, if you're a Pinterest fan, check out our board for the latest snapshots of the city. Thanks so much for joining us today on Your City at Work, and we'll see you next time.